Now that Christmas is in the rearview mirror, focus of attention is New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, flip of the calendar, college football playoffs. For me, being a Ohio State Buckeye fan, it's the Rose Bowl with Ohio State rematch against Oregon on Wednesday, next Wednesday. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. Chris is back on January 2nd. I'm in tonight, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. He'll be back Thursday. Chris is filling in for Casey Bartholomew on morning show, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'll be at night. One of the things my story is born and raised up in the state of Ohio. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, spent many years up there. Worked in the radio business, never really didn't train and want to become a radio talk show host, just kind of fell in at the right place, right time, and here I am. One of the things the nuance about me is I've just never been a big fan of New Year's Eve. I don't like New Year's Eve. I'm not a bah humbug guy. I can put it in simple words. To me, the most fun I've ever had in my life has been spontaneous. I didn't plan it. Never. I can't tell you a time in my life, some of the best memories I've had in my life that I planned. The most fun I've ever had in my life, I can give you a dozen events. Were all spontaneous. New Year's Eve is not spontaneous. It's forced fun, and that's why I don't like it. I don't think you can force fun. I don't think you can force memorable type events. I just think spontaneity is the key to life. And I really believe that New Year's Eve is forced fun, and that's why I don't like New Year's Eve. I'm going to talk a little bit about New Year's Eve a little bit later, but I go back in my memory at the age of 64. I can't remember too many New Year's Eves that really stick out to me. Can you? Can you think of many New Year's Eves? Can you recall a specific New Year's Eve that's not in the last 3 to 5 years? Can you recall one 10 years ago, 15, 18, 20 years ago, whatever it was, that you can remember everything about it that was that much fun? I contend most people can't. I can't. The most memorable one I had was probably when I was I don't know what age I was, probably somewhere around the age of 10 or 11 or 12. And it turned out to be a spontaneous night, something I still remember. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now I want to talk about memory loss. When the holidays come, is that time of the year that a lot of families get together for the first time in several months. There are just several times in the course of the year that families get together 2 or 3 times a year because kids and family are scattered across country. And there's many of us that experienced something over the last couple of days where you had that wake-up moment of, a loved one has memory loss. Is it old age? Is it normal? Is it not? Is it memory loss? Is there something more significant? I had that moment yesterday. My oldest brother lives in town. He came over, and we had 4 or 5 things that happened that I went, that's a problem. And also in my house was my buddy Earl, who has Alzheimer's. I pick him up every Saturday, every Sunday, and every holiday. I had him with me Tuesday for Christmas Eve. I had him for Christmas Day. Pick him up and make him a part of my family because I love my buddy Earl and I need Earl in my life. I don't do it because I'm doing it for him. I do it because I need it for me. And Earl, in most cases, if he were sitting here with you and I having a conversation right now, you may not know he's got Alzheimer's. He can remember golf shots that he or I shot 15, 20 years ago. When I get in the car every night to take him home, we'll turn on a local radio station that plays 80s music. And I'll ask Earl when a song comes on, I'll test him all the time. Who sings this? What's the name of the song? And probably 60% of the time, he can tell me the name of the artist and the name of the song. But he can't remember when he gets in the car to put on a seatbelt. And he can't remember that he's got to go potty or not. And he can't remember when he has to go potty. I have to help him out and take him into the bathroom and say, okay, put on your pants. He can't remember exactly how to do that, so I have to help him. He can't remember he's wearing a diaper or not a diaper. He can't remember to wipe or not to wipe. He can't remember. He doesn't know how to take a shower. He struggles sometimes to take medicine. But you know what? He can remember all kinds of stuff from 20, 25, 30 years ago that I'm like, how is it you can't remember to take a pill? How is it you can't remember sometimes to take a fork and stick a fork in the food and eat it? But you can remember that from 30 years ago that I don't remember. It's a horrible, horrible disease, Alzheimer's. So my brother comes over to the house. A couple things happen that I saw. And my question to you is this. How have you experienced that? I want to hear from you. How have you experienced memory loss in a loved one? And it may have happened this week, Christmas. And how are you dealing with it? Because there's a lot of folks, the first time they experience that, a loved one with memory loss, there's a lot of us that want to just naturally say, no, they're okay. It's just a little old age. Just forgot something. But at what point in time do you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, that's not just forgetting something like we all do. That's memory loss that could be dementia or even worse, Alzheimer's. And at some point in time, you have to make an intervention. Some point in time, you got to say, I got to take your keys away from you, mom or dad. Some point in time, you have to take independent living away and say, you know what? I don't trust the fact that you can sit in your home and be okay. One of the things I always say is, if you want to test somebody's mental acuity, you know what you do? Simple thing. Grab their checkbook and look at it. See if it's balanced. See if it's accurate. And if it's a mess, that's a sign. Look at someone's checkbook. So if you're questioning, if you're in a family, and a lot of times I see this where there's 3 kids and mom or dad has had significant mental acuity decline. And usually one kid says, oh, it's horrible. We got to get mom or dad into a nursing home. And the opposite end of that is there's nothing wrong with mom and dad. And it's usually that third child, the one in the middle, that can be swayed one way or another. That's like, yeah, I see what you're saying, both of you are saying, and they're trying to make up their own mind. If you really want to see how bad it is, grab the checkbook. Look at the checkbook, see how accurate it is, see how up-to-date it is. Are they missing checks? Are they missing totals? Are the numbers not right? It's one simple way to do it. My brother came over and had 4 or 5 of those moments that I'm going to have to jump in at some point in time and have a conversation. Because he's single, never married, no kids. He's was a member of Big Brothers Little Brothers, and he had a little brother years ago that he wants to make him the power of attorney. So I got to have a conversation with him to say, hey, when Rick dies, you're the one going to be in charge. You need to put on your big boy pants and start addressing some of those things now. It's a real tough time during the holidays to recognize, to acknowledge, to understand and accept the responsibility that someone you love is losing some mental acuity. And the holidays make it worse because it's that time of the year that sometimes you don't see your loved one except for 3 times a year. It's one thing to have a conversation with them on the phone or FaceTime them. It's another thing to spend a couple hours with somebody and go strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, strike 4. You see a lot of warning signs. So I would challenge you to say, if you see warning signs, test them. Test them before it's too late. And if you've done that, gone through it, experienced this, I want to hear from you. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff on social media. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Kroc here in News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Memory care. It's a tough conversation to have, but it certainly presents itself sometimes around the holidays like this. I had that incident happen yesterday with my big brother who came over and had 5 or 6 instances where he went, there's a problem. Going to have to address it. Jeff's the name. Congratulations, by the way, to Sean Hannity. I saw Hannity propose to fellow Fox News host Ainsley Earhart on Christmas Day. So congratulations, Sean. I have a Sean story. I was working at a radio station in Columbus, Ohio. It's a good story. Years ago, there was a news talk station that had Sean Hannity on one for a couple hours and Glenn Beck for a couple other hours. And over a period of 2 weeks leading into a presidential election, I forget which one it was, both of them visited the radio station. First was Glenn Beck, came in on a Wednesday. And I was sitting in my office on the business side of the building, And early in the morning, it was about 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. And I heard outside the window a bunch of rustling going on and some noise. I stopped and looked out the window, and I saw 3 big black SUVs pull up. It was almost like a presidential motorcade. And I thought, that's odd. 7:30 in the morning on a work day. And I noticed the 3 SUVs stopped. There were no police cars with it. The front SUV stopped ahead of the back door. The second SUV stopped right at the back door, and the third one was behind it. Guys got out of the first and third SUV, kind of walked around the SUVs, looked around, kind of, you could tell they were carrying guns or something because they were, hands are right there just in case. And then they went over and tapped on the back door of the second SUV. The door opens, and out comes Glenn Beck. And he's got a bodyguard in front of him, a bodyguard behind him. They walk in the back door. They come up the back steps. They walk by my office. I get about 5 feet past. Glenn stops, turns around, comes back, and says, "Jeff, right?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "We've met several times." I said, "Yeah." And we talked for a few minutes. He said, "Good to see you." So I'd met Glenn several times before, and he remembered me. And so he came back to say hello. We chatted for a few minutes, and off he went. So Glenn Beck comes in the station on a Wednesday. He's got armed security guys in front of him and behind him. He's got a 3-vehicle party of SUVs, like big black Chevy Suburbans, and he's heavily guarded. And all I could think about, I wanted to ask, but I didn't. All I could think about is he probably had several death threats, and he probably had all kinds of personal security because of that. That was Glenn Beck. This is would have been, I'll bet you it was, I don't know exactly, I'll bet it's 2016, so my guess is the presidential election. So it was 2 weeks before the election. That was a Wednesday. The following Friday, so 2 days later, I'm walking through the lobby of the radio station, and I go out front to talk to the person at our front desk at the time who answers phones and greets visitors. And just as I walk out the door to talk to her, a guy comes in the door. I didn't stop to look at him very closely. He's wearing khakis, a button-down collar shirt, and a ball cap. And so he gets to the front desk before I did, and he said, "Hi, my name's Sean. I'm here to see so-and-so." And it was asking for the engineer. And she said, "Okay, is he expecting you?" And he said, "Yeah." And I looked up, and it's Sean Hannity. Well, Sean Hannity goes over, and so she calls the front desk lady, calls the engineer and the folks she's calling, and I start having a conversation with her. And out of the corner of my eye, I notice Sean Hannity sits down in the lobby of the radio station, pulls out something like an iPad, starts reading it. So 2 days earlier, Glenn Beck in town comes through the back door with all kinds of guarded security, front and back. You'd think it was a high-profile political candidate coming in. And on this day, Friday morning, so that was, they were both, Glenn Beck was about 7:30 in the morning before the building and office opened. So there weren't a lot of people around. In the meantime, Sean Beck comes in right about 11:30 or so, right before lunchtime, 11 o'clock. Building's crowded with people, and he just walks in on his own. And I thought that was interesting, that Glenn Beck had all kinds of highfalutin security guys with him, protecting him. And Sean Hannity walks in, no disguise, just walks in and no security, nothing. Thought that was interesting. It's interesting when you meet people, famous people, and you run into them, how that goes, what it's like, and the difference between them. But that really was stuck in my mind and still does about meeting someone famous. Love to hear your stories about meeting someone famous. Christmas time is not only a tough time for family members, it's a tough time for pets. I got 2 dogs. One is Harley and one is Baxter. Love to hear your story about your pets in Christmas. And as I was thinking about Christmas items for them, it was amazing to look at some of the gifts that people are spending money on for gifts. what got me thinking about that was I visited a friend who I do business with at his house back in October, and went over one night, had some pizza and some sodas, and he was having a couple beers. He's got a cat named Gizmo, and Gizmo, as most cats are, doesn't warm up to anybody, and it takes a while for her to do that. I sit down, have some pizza and a Diet Coke with the guy. He's got on the NBA game. I think it was a Mavericks game, actually. And we're sitting there watching that, just talking business. And Gizmo all of a sudden falls in love with me, jumps up on my lap, rubs her tail all over me. What cats do, right? I mean, warmed up to me big time. Well, then he says, "Hey, Gizmo, get down." And I'm like, "No, Gizmo's fine." He said, "No, Gizmo's not. Gizmo's got to go eat." I'm like, "Okay." So he says, "Shoo, Gizmo, get down." So Gizmo gets down, and just about that time, a door opens on this contraption across the room. And I'm like, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, it's Gizmo's home." I'm like, "What?" He's got this cat home that looks like a condominium, a small condo. It probably weighed 25 pounds. It probably... It had like 3 rooms in it, in this contraption for his cat. 1 room for Gizmo to go into and sleep. 1 room for Gizmo where Gizmo's litter was to do his thing. And by the way, it was automatic. So when Gizmo went, it automatically cleaned it. It had an automatic process that it would go through and clean the kitty litter out and package it into a bag that would set it off to the side of this condo. And then the third area of this condo, this cat condo, was a almost kitchenette. It was a dining room. And the noise I heard was this dining area, a trap door opened at a very specific time. I said, "What the hell is this thing?" He went on to tell me it's like a kitty condo. It's got 3 rooms in it. He's got an app for that. And you can set it up off of a timer, which he had it set up as a timer, that he had it timed that the food door would open at a very specific times throughout the day, and the food would dispense. So if he was at work for lengthy hours, the daggone kitty litter box got cleaned on its own electronically. The food would dispense at very specific times, and the cat's water, it also had like a water fountain attached to it, that the water would drip out of it into the water bowl. I'm like, "Where the heck did you get this?" He told me where he got it. I think it was online somewhere. And there's a downloadable app that he's like, "Yeah." I asked him a lot of questions. He said, "Well, I'm at work. I've got a camera in there so I can see Gizmo." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. How much did you spend on this?" It was less than $1,000. I'm like, you spend just under $1,000 on like a kitty condo for your cat that automatically feeds it, that cleans the kitty litter and does everything manually or electronically. And by the way, you have an app for that. Stunning what people do for their pets and how much money they spend on. So I had to look up some of the items that people spend money on for cats in particular, as well as dogs. I saw something called a litter robot. Cat apartments. The cat apartments is room for playing. It's like what he had, a room for a kitty condo, a room for playing, a room for eating, and a room for cleaning. The cleanup, as in kitty litter and stuff. There's something called stainless steel water fountains that actually have a spigot and water coming out of it, just like it does in your faucet. So it simulates to the cat you're filling his bowl up with water. They have elaborate wall-mounted shelving specifically for cats to roam around the room with bridging from space to space. I've seen contraptions like that are just unbelievable. Cat trees in condo. I saw something called cat tree in condo. Cat scratch skateboard. It's a skateboard for cats. It's a scratching piece that also acts as a skateboard. And I saw treadmills. So I had to look for dogs because I got 2 dogs. And I saw a fully automated pet doors that you install in your home that you can do it manually or you can do it electronically and control it by an app that a dog can go over, click a button or touch on a button and open the door and go out and do their thing and come right back in. And all kinds of exercise gear for dogs, like treadmills and stuff like that. What have you seen? What have you done? What do you have? What have you used? What have you bought for your pet, for your dog or your cat? It's amazing the amount of money people spend on their animals. I kid you not, I swear, some people love their animals more than they love their kids. Love to hear your story. What have you spent money on for your pet that's personalized for your pet that some might look at and go, that's exuberant, but you say, nah, it's my pet. I love my pet. I want to hear your story. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. What do you have? What have you seen for your pet that someone might consider exorbitant, but you don't? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Boy, pet owners can be nutty sometimes. I'm one of those. I've got two dogs, Baxter and Harley. I'll tell you about them in a few minutes. Not a cat guy, although I've never liked cats. But about 10 years ago, a cat adopted me. Ended up in my backyard as a kitten. And he was clearly a feral cat and looked like he was about half dead because he was about half the weight of what he's supposed to be. And he buddied up next to me and my wife. And it went from being a kitty cat in the backyard to being sleeping in my bed. And unfortunately died we had to put him down at the age of 9. And he adopted me. I didn't adopt him. And the little SOB made me fall in love with him and changed my entire perspective on cats. He was not like, his name was Bruno. We named him Bruno because he kind of had the color of fur of Bruno Mars. My daughter named him Bruno. And he didn't know he was a cat. Wasn't like a typical cat. But some people, I swear some people just love their animals more than they love their family members. And it shows based off of the things that they buy their pets. I've seen some wild things that people have. I mentioned a moment ago about a buddy of mine that I do business with that spent almost $1,000 on a kitty condo. And I'm like, you're nuts. So I'd love to hear your story about pets. You see it especially during the holidays. I see people buying presents for their dogs and cats all the time. I was one of them. I'll tell you that in about 3 minutes. But first, I want to get to Jody and Ennis. Jody, thanks for listening. You're on the Chris Crock Show talking to Westside Jeff. Thanks for calling from Ennis.
Thank you. My brothers and sisters, we're all in our 70s. And I have a brother who lives in the middle of New Mexico, away from a lot of his family. He has 2 cats and a dog, and his whole life rotates around them. And we hardly see him. He won't make a drive anywhere to see his family. And I just am totally confused. I don't know why anyone would place their animals above their family. And so it's just a constant problem. And I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'll ever see my brother again.
Really?
How
old is he?
Oh, he's in his 70s, a retired teacher. And
single guy, never been married or what?
Well, he's a widower and no children. And I talk to him almost daily. But it's just his life. His life rotates around his animals. And the sadness I feel is it's overwhelming. I mean, so.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. So he places the value of his animal's life higher than personal relationships. Do you think he's gone through some depression and maybe the two, you said 2 dogs and 1 cat?
Yeah, it's 2 cats, 1 dog. Oh,
2 cats and 1 dog? You think they are I don't know, Dr. Ruth here playing, maybe, yeah, I'm not Dr. Ruth, but I'm playing it on the radio as I wonder if maybe they're his emotional outlet. And I know of folks who have animals, and like you're talking about, and I've gotten to the root of it a little bit. And somebody once said to me, you know what, unconditional love, and they'll never hurt me.
Well, I always, I don't know, I guess I love animals, but we don't have one. It's just our choice. But I always think of it as the culture of life and the culture of death. And I think I don't understand that. The human life is placed below the pet, and it never made sense to me. And I'm sad about it. And I just wish people would understand that, yes, God gave us pets, but they're not to replace our family, the human being, our brothers and sisters and friends. And the overwhelming sadness I have, I don't understand. I mean, I grew up with my brother. I don't understand why he took that path. But nieces and nephews seem to be non-existent compared to his pets.
Did you see him for Christmas?
No, I talked to him. Of course, I called because he lives in New Mexico. It's beyond, I can't believe it. I don't know what created it.
Strange.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jody, for calling and sharing that. I'll open the phones. I'm curious what others have to say about that. Jody says that she's got a brother she hadn't seen for a while because the brother has 2 cats and a dog and places the value of the relationship he has with the 2 cats and a dog above relationship with family, and it gets in the way of family time. You can't be the only one that deals with that, I don't think. Love to hear from other listeners that if you've experienced this, or if maybe you do experience this now, and how do you comprehend that? How do you cope with that? Jody, you can't be the only one in the world like that. I'm sure there's more. I don't know anybody like that specifically, but I every now and then, for the heck of it, I'll read a Dear Abby column every now and then, or one of those, and I'll read stories like that about exactly what you're saying. How a loved one has animals and is so fixated on their dogs, their cats, their animals that they don't have a relationship with people. Talk about animals and the relationship we have them. I've seen people spend a lot of money on their animals for Christmas. Years ago, I had a dog, Jeremy, and I've always had a live Christmas tree. And I remember when I was single, wrapping presents for Jeremy, and it was like milk bones and doggy bones. And I remember coming home from work one night, and my house was a mess because Jeremy had taken it upon himself to open all the presents himself because he could smell the food, smell the milk bones, smell the dog bones, and he gorged on that stuff all day while I was gone, and the house was a mess. And so I grabbed him by the snout and put my nose right next to him and said, that was unacceptable. You can't do that. I walked him outside and put him in the backyard, which is fenced in, while I cleaned up the house. Let him back in the house. He was pissed off at me, so he walked over to the Christmas tree, lifted his leg, and pissed on it. That was my dog, Jeremy. Well, he was my buddy, but Jeremy's not around anymore. So talking about animals, pets, Christmas, the amount of money people spend. I got a buddy that spent almost $1,000 on a kiddie condo that has multiple rooms in it. I kid you not. It's as big as some of these massive doll houses I've seen people have. And his cat kind of lives in it, sleeps in it, eats in it, drinks in it, does its business in it, and everything's controlled electronically. He's got apps for that. It's stunning. I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. The name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'd love to hear your story about pets, animals, holidays, buying them Christmas gifts, the amount of money you spend, and the kinds of gifts that people buy for their pets, and how they, Jody, to your point, I've read story after story about somebody who treats their dog, their cat, better than they do family members, better than a son, a child, a daughter, or whatever it is. 800-288-9227 is my number. 800-288-WBAP. Got to hit a quick break. Be back in 3.5 minutes with your phone calls about pets. What examples do you have of somebody treating a pet better than human being? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff In for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. CeeDee Lamb is being parked in the park bench for the final 2 games for the Cowboys. I call it a soft tank. I'll explain that to you. Give me 15 minutes. I'll tell you more. Name's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Crock. Chris is back on January 2nd on this show. He's back in the seat doing his regular show January 2nd. Until then, he's filling in for Casey Bartholomew, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. We're talking about pets. We're talking about Christmas. I have a buddy. I went over to his house end of October, 1st of November, and he's got like a kitty condo that he spent almost $1,000 on. This kitty condo has multiple rooms in it, a room for sleeping, a room for dining, so the cat food and water, and a room for the cat doing its business. And the kitty litter is all controlled electronically, that when the cat goes, there's an electronic arm that goes through and cleans it out and puts it in a bag and then sets it off to the side, and it spits it out the side of the kitty condo. It's amazing. I said to him, what the heck's this? He says, it's controlled by an app. I got an app on my phone. If it's, I can, it's got a little camera inside of the kitty condo. I can see my cat gizmo, and I can see what it's doing, and if I need to give it more food, I can. Everything's done electronically. Can do it from his office, even though if he's out of town or something. So it helps manage his cat's life. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Who would spend $1,000 on this? I never really liked cats, but I had a cat adopt me and fall in love with the daggone thing. I wouldn't spend $1,000 on that. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Talked a moment ago about Jody from Ennis that said her brother spends way too much time with his pets, and it's getting in the way of his relationship with his family. I said, Jody, you can't be the only one. There's got to be others. I'd love to hear stories of that, because poor Jody needs to know she's not alone. 800-288-9227 is my phone number. Let's talk to Jamie from Denton. Jamie, thanks for calling. You're on the Chris Crock Show with Westside Jeff. What's your thought?
Hey, Jeff. Well, I'd heard the last caller, and I kind of have a similar situation, kind of different. My grandmother, my dad's mother, raised both of us. My parents weren't really around much when I was little, and so she was my rock. She was my world. She's always been my mom, and I moved from Arkansas to Texas about 15 years ago, and still saw her every holiday. I went down, every couple of weeks to see her, and then about 7 years back, she just locked herself down, and she's the epitome of like an animal person. She's got 6 or 7 birds at the last time I spoke to her, 3 dogs, like 2 cats, and
it's a zoo.
All of a sudden, yeah, a zoo. She's always had a zoo. Growing up, it was a raccoon outside my window in a little cage. So, I mean, it was always pets and all that. But she, about 7 years ago, just called out of the blue. I went to call her, and she just said, I don't want you in my life anymore. All I need is my pets.
What?
And it's heartbreaking. And, we'd had
Grandma?
some turbulent. I'd had some issues with drinking in the past. Nothing. It never interfered with our relationship, but she got to the point where she's like, I think God's telling me that I don't need to be around any of my family. You all are toxic, and I just need to be with my animal. And that broke my heart, because this is like my mom. She raised me, and it's still hard to talk about. But lo and behold, come to find out that through a family friend who's a physician, and that she had been diagnosed with Parkinson's a few months earlier, and apparently that's very common with people with Parkinson's, from what I've been told.
Really?
There is a mental aspect to it, and it can be almost like dementia-like symptoms, to where they do erratic things. I had a great uncle who died of Parkinson's, and towards the end, right at the height of COVID, he passed from COVID. He was doing very outlandish things and saying crazy things. So, and according to the doctor, a lot of people, over the age of 60, early age of 75, a lot of people are getting Parkinson's, and it's just not affecting them like normal Parkinson's would. What you think it would be. And
so
really
they become withdrawn from relationships, and then they assign new relationships to their pets.
Yep, that is a symptom of Parkinson's. Wow. It's not a common one you hear about, but And to this day, I've reached out and I get nothing. So, I mean, I know through family friends in Arkansas that she's still alive and she's still there with all her pets, but she just completely shut everybody out. And she said that the only thing that would hurt her is her pets. Now she's 78.
Does she still have her mental acuity and drive? And
last time I checked, last time I heard from a family friend, my grandfather's funeral, and they've been divorced since 2000. Last time I spoke to anybody in the family last November, yeah, she was fine. Just didn't want to.
Grandma called you out of the blue and said, "I don't want you in my life. All I need is my pets."
Yep, she goes, everybody's toxic. Y'all have done nothing to help me. All I get's pain and all that. Yeah, just out of the blue.
Wow. Is there anybody in the family she still has a relationship with that you know of?
My uncle, but I think the last time he ran into her was my grandfather, right before my grandfather's funeral. And she didn't go to that or any of that. And, yeah, I think they still talk. I don't really talk to my uncle much, but... Yeah, she may be one person, and last time I heard, she didn't even talk to her friends anymore. It's just her animals and her little house in Arkansas, and that's it.
Oh, Jamie, I'm so sorry. That had to hurt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you'd have to do that. I couldn't imagine pick up the phone and talking to Grandma or somebody that's that close to me and have them say, "I don't want you in my life anymore. You're toxic, and I just got my pets." Wow.
Yeah, and I just had a kid a while back, and she missed all that, and yeah, it's sad. But according to a few doctors that I've talked to, including psychologists, that Parkinson's, a lot of people get it that age, and they don't know they have it, and it doesn't show as a normal symptom, and that's very common.
Jamie, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for that. So thank you, though, for calling and having the gumption to pick up a phone and call and share your story. Obviously, you're not alone. You got Jody dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, I wanted to let Jody know she's not alone. She's definitely not alone.
We need to start a pets aren't that important type club. And,
right.
So, Jamie, thanks for calling. I appreciate it very much. If you've got a story like that, I'd like to hear it. There's two people back to back that said that a loved one has pets, and the pets are getting in the way of personal relationships with a family. And how I started talking about the topic, his name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock, is because a friend of mine who I do business with, I went over to his house late October, early November, and he's got like a pet condo. It's a condo for his cat. It's like I think it's called like a kitty condo, and it's like a 3 or 4 bedroom unit, and it probably weighs 30 or 40 pounds, something like that. And it's like a miniature. The best way to describe it, it's a miniature condominium for his cat. And the cat goes into it. There are cameras in it, so he pulled up his phone, showed me an app, said, so Gizmo's in there now. He's in the living room area. Here's a picture of him. Here's where he is right now, because I couldn't see Gizmo from where I was sitting. And it's got a camera in every one of those little rooms. There's a little room for like a family room, a lounging room, where Gizmo hangs out. Just lays there. Must feel safe because, just a safe environment. He's got a room for sleeping. He's got a room for eating, for dining and drinking water. And Gizmo's got a room to go to the bathroom. And the kitty litter box within this kitty condo is automatic. So when Gizmo goes in, it manages, it knows Gizmo's weight. So when Gizmo goes in, does its thing, and then leaves the kitty litter box automatically scoops itself, grabs up the stuff, puts it into a little bag that's associated with it, and then ties up and spits the bag off to the side. I'm like, dude, what'd you spend on this? And he said almost $1,000. And I'm like, you got $1,000 to spend on this little kitty condo? You got money to burn. People ask me, what's your definition of rich? Well, if I got money to spend on a kitty condo with apps associated with it, with cameras in it that automatically does everything you need to do for a cat, I'd say you're doing pretty well. So that was a client, someone I do business with. I'd love to hear your story about things that you've seen who have pets and what they've spent money on. A kitty condo. Got on the topic because I got 2 dogs, and talk more about it another night. But one of them was my daughter's dog. She adopted him through a pet rescue program when she went to college at a university on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. And it was a dog that was mostly lab, has a little bit of pit in him, but you'd never know it. And he was abused as a pup. He has cigarette burns all over his body. He was food deprived, water deprived. They put him on treadmills, chasing stuff, tried to turn him into a killer dog. He wasn't a killer, so they discarded him. And she told me that the pet adoption service, the rescue place, I think it's called Rescue Kentucky, said he was thrown out of a moving car window. And let me tell you, there is a special place in hell for people like that. A very, very special place in hell for people who abuse animals like that. I don't care if it's cats, dogs, I don't care what it is. And she named the dog Harley. Through COVID, she moved home with us for the 2 years through COVID, and I took Harley on walks every day from 3 to 7 miles because that was a safe place. He loved it. And Harley over time has become my dog. I'm his person, and he will defend me till death. And my daughter was in town for Christmas, and she left to go back to Knoxville today. And he's been lifeless except for when I walk in the door. My wife and I talked about it, and she said, I think Harley thinks he was going to go home with her, and he doesn't want to go and he wants to stay here. So he's been really emotional today. Real interesting how pets respond to us, especially through the holidays and people.